we're back.
We're back in the back corner.
To the back corner.
Welcome to the dozens and the dozens.
Look at us. We're getting it down.
We were just saying before we hit record that I wasn't sure I could remember how we did this because
it's been a while.
It feels like it's been a while. It's probably been like a week and a half.
6 days for everybody else.
Yeah, but also we did like one every day for a while.
Yeah,
and
we banged out a bunch in a small amount of time. But,
so the rhythm feels less familiar, but we're gonna do it. We're here. We're good.
It's good to be back.
It is great to be back.
It's just us.
It is.
It's just the two of us.
Just the two of us. Hey!
I mean, that song's worth listening to.
It is. Will we get nailed on YouTube for copyright infringement?
Probably if I leave it too much longer.
Yeah. If you just watched us react to something you couldn't hear in silence,
that was just the two of us.
Brent was playing just the two of us.
Bill Withers.
Yes, there we go.
So we can do it. Actually, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. It's just me and you. It's just me and you, buddy. We got this.
All right.
We actually are going to, it's a bit of a unique episode because this week and next week's episode, we are going to kind of do a hybrid thing where we already did the interview portion of this episode.
Our guests will be joining us later in the program.
They will. And we're going to actually like teleport the back corner to Moncton.
Across provinces and through time.
Yes.
A lot of you didn't realize the back corner had that level of technology, but it's not just a booth, it's a time machine.
It's among many other things.
It's kind of a TARDIS of recording sets.
I find that word offensive, sir. Yeah.
You familiar? You know what I'm talking about? The TARDIS.
A TARDIS? No.
Doctor Who?
No.
So Doctor Who is it's a British sci-fi show that like a whole bunch of people are mad you don't know about right now. And there's like a blue phone box thing that he travels in. If you saw a picture of it, you'd recognize it. It's all over the internet. Anyways, it looks
Doctor Who?
Yeah, exactly. It looks like a telephone booth. Well, it is on the outside, but on the inside, it's like this whole world, and it's a time machine. Okay. And so Doctor Who travels through time in a phone box called the TARDIS.
Okay.
That's about all I know because I never watched the show because now's where everyone gets mad at me. I think it's a stupid show.
Sounds dumb.
And it has that.
His vehicle's called a TARDIS.
You know how British TV looks like British TV?
Yeah, like terrible?
Yeah.
Like there's a mist over it?
Yes, and like it was shot with a camcorder. Like
I believe there's a CanCon reference a little later as well.
Oh, well, I see now I'm always up for CanCon.
I'm remembering the conversation with Jon Tyson.
Did we have
that we're going to get to?
Certainly we did. I'm sure we had a CanCon reference.
You did.
Oh, I
in
always.
Your Mountainous Top 4.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Which is coming later. So.
All right. Well, I'm already excited for the thing I was already a part of.
Actually, this interview with Jon Tyson is fantastic.
Yeah,
so you guys are gonna love that conversation. It was a great time at XY Men's Conference. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. That's actually the first time I've been there for the whole one. I've been there for like a few hours before. But yeah, it was fantastic. Highly recommend guys make sure you're there next year.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, great hanging out with people, but man, like there was just a real tangible sense of God's presence.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's always great to like learn some things or be encouraged, but there's a whole other thing when you have that sense that we're encountering God together.
Yeah.
And beautiful, powerful stuff. Yeah. Be there next year.
Yeah, it was it was transcendent. Like there was just transcendent moments.
Legitimately.
And we were asking God to do it and he did it.
Yeah.
And so that's what we wanted. And so also like to your point, it was fun. And from a back corner standpoint, it was encouraging to see the dozens and the dozens come out.
That may have been the single largest gathering of dozens.
Yeah.
Thus far.
Might have been hundreds.
We could have been,
yes. It was dozens of dozens. Dozens and dozens.
Yeah.
The math messes me up.
A dozen of dozens. Ron, you got to calculate.
Yeah. It was dozens and dozens.
It
was dozens and dozens.
144 is a dozen.
I don't know. But it was cool. There was some merch going around.
Yeah.
Which is available, by the way, on our website.
Yes.
At backcornerpodcast.cc. Is that right?
.com. Backcornerpodcast.com.
We got the .com.
We went full .com on this one.
Look at us.
First to the table.
That's amazing. So,
if if you've ever tried to get a URL that isn't for the world's weirdest names,
Yes,
like if you're,
it
you
is
know,
hard, yeah.
like if you're
It
like
is.
whatever, I collect duckfeet.com is probably
Right, it's
available.
available, yeah.
But like, yeah, you know, for anything, any 2 or 3 normal human words.com is hard to get. Yeah.
Into sponsors today. I'll start with unofficial sponsor NyQuil Cold and Sinus. If we're a little off today here in the back corner, both of us have got some ailments we're pushing through.
We do. Well, in the spirit of that, then I'm going to go ahead and say I'm sponsored by Kirkland's signature off-brand Robaxa set.
There you go. So we're both gonna be about a 4.5 on the scale.
Yeah, out of
Just a 4.5.
okay. We'll find out what it's out of
Could
in
be
an
5.
hour.
It could be out of 10. It could be out of 100.
Out
You
of
don't know.
27.
It's a 4.5. That's all.
I love it.
That's all I know.
I love it.
But today's official sponsor.
Yes, is OneCon
Yes.
coming
Exciting.
up in May.
If you're a parent of a teenager in Atlantic Canada,
Yes, get them there.
get them to this.
Take them there, drag them there, bribe them to go there.
Yeah.
Offer to help them pay to go there. I mean, it's great to teach kids to, you know, earn a few bucks or whatever, but if you need to help them get there, it is absolutely worthwhile.
And it's there will be more than dozens. We might get to thousands and thousands this year if we hit 4,000.
Yeah.
I mean, that's technically thousands.
Well, 3 is thousands and thousands.
Thousands.
No, you need
1,000.
2,000s. Yeah, two 2,000s. So, yeah.
So if
So
we
this
hit
is-
4,000,
This has been math with
look at us.
2 highly drugged
This is
bastards.
NyQuil math.
What happens when you go to Bible college and then take a lot of drugs? Try to do
over the
math.
counter cold drugs.
Yeah.
And maybe some of that Crosby stash. You never know.
Any word on the? Are they ready to be an official sponsor yet? Have we heard?
No, but I do have another dude. This whole Crosby's thing is just taking the molasses train is rolling.
I think genuinely the whole like running molasses theme is my favorite thing about this podcast.
Well, it's not stopping. I got a surprise for you.
Oh, look at this.
This is for those of you who are listening. I have
man.
a book in my hands, a graphic novel by Lauren Tarshish called "I Survived the Great Molasses Flood of 1919." So this is going to. It's a comic book graphic novel. Telling the horrific story.
Yes.
Of when molasses ran loose in the streets of, was it Boston?
Yeah, it was Boston.
Of course it was.
Friday, September 27th, 1918, the north end of, that was 3.5 months earlier, though. So I don't know when it happened somewhere back then. It happened in 1919.
I'm intrigued. I think I might actually read it.
Yeah, well.
I feel like that needs to be on like one of those history podcasts we like.
There's 75, page 75 is where the actual thing starts to break. So there's going to be, apparently, I think they're going to try to get us really invested in the characters that will drown in said molasses. Because, I mean, the whole thing's only about 150 pages. So,
and I mean, they did a good job getting 150 pages out of the story of, hey, there was a molasses leak.
Totally.
Took a few people with it. We cleaned it up. All's well that ends well. You know. So
wow. No,
anyway, thanks to Mike White for tracking that down.
Thank you, Mike.
That's
clearly a member of the dozens.
Oh, definitely one of the dozens.
Yeah, he's one of the top dozens.
Yeah.
Because he gave us gifts.
We need to put that, give that a place of prominence here in the back corner. So look at that. We're getting more and more good clutter here in the back corner. So good clutter.
If you'd like to send good clutter,
I don't mind clutter if it's in a designated place.
Yeah.
So it's good clutter. Back there.
It's intentional clutter.
Yeah, if it's in the wrong spot,
it's decor
I'm not having it. So
clutter. I'm with you.
But back to OneCon really quick. You can go to onecon.ca and get your kid registered. Again, for those of you who don't know what it is, it's an interdenominational youth conference.
Yeah.
And a little backstory. I'll give you the backstory.
I'd love to hear the backstory.
I was speaking at the big Wesleyan conference in 2017, maybe. And on one of the sessions, I wasn't speaking. I was out in the crowd with all these kids. There's probably 7,000 kids there. And like just such a cool experience. And I got looking around. My kids were starting to come into youth age. I was like, my kids will, unless I send them to this, they'll never get to do something at this scale in Atlantic Canada, unless the church works together.
Absolutely.
Unless like we take Rally in the Valley, which was King's Church's youth rally, which we had about 1,000 kids coming to.
I was the first person ever to speak at that rally.
You were.
Yeah.
Yes, you were.
I was the inaugural speaker.
You were. Yeah. Rightly so.
Yeah.
And I approached Renee at the Atlantic Baptist Convention, and we chatted, and like it truly is miraculous, honestly, that
really
there
is.
was like, not that her and her team, bought in. They bought in very quick, but they were able to convince like the elders in the Baptist church and like the decision makers, like, yeah, let's like, and they they took the flag. We took the flag off Rally in the Valley, so we're going to put all of our chips in here, and we're going to make this one conference thing, and we'll be part of the base of this. And brought some money to the table and all that stuff. But, they had like 30 years of Tidal Impact was their big rally. And they had the bigger rally than us.
Yeah.
And to merge those two things for the sake of doing something bigger and better and more impactful for more kids in Atlantic Canada. So it's
shout out to the CABC.
Heck yeah. But then we had, after, we came together, a bunch of other, the Pentecostals and independent churches, and I don't know. There's well over 100 churches that are represented that are involved in this, and so
I think it's so healthy for like one of the things that particularly, I mean, if you're a teenager in a larger church, this is a little bit less of a thing, but still some. But certainly, if you're a teenager in a smaller church or a church that doesn't have 100 or 200 kids coming out every Wednesday or whatever night to be part of a youth ministry, it's really easy to feel like you're alone.
Totally. You're at your high school and like, am I the only Christian?
Am I the only one here? And there's something like what...
Unless you go to Christian school, which we'll talk about later.
You might be the only Christian there too. What students like hear and experience in terms of speakers and all that is amazing, but there is just something...
Yeah.
Not just powerful as in like it's an emotional thing, but like it's actually meaningful to stand in a room with thousands of other people your age facing the same stuff you're facing and going, I'm going to serve Jesus.
And in your region too, because like you and I don't know if did you ever go to the big Wesleyan ones?
It's easy.
You go there,
especially if you're down in the States somewhere. Like it just feels like a different world.
Yeah, I don't have much in common with you. You live in Idaho.
Totally. And you feel like I went and visited a place where there's other Christians. Not there are other Christians where I live.
Yeah, that's one of the cool things about OneCon is just like, man, my kids are in a room with several thousand other teenagers that live in Atlantic Canada. Yeah. They get to look around. It's like that moment with Elijah when Elijah thinks, I'm the only person that follows you, Lord. And the Lord's like, no, there are still thousands that have not bowed the knee to Baal.
100%.
And to give that moment to the kids is so massive. And then there's just that like, just the favor of God is on unity.
Yeah.
I mean, the Atlantic Kingdom Alliance.
Yeah, we're all about it.
That's what we've been trying to build on through that. But like, just God seems super interested in blessing the church coming together, and so all the more reason to get your kid to it, because it's just like like we were talking about with XY. It's just punchy. Like the Spirit of God just shows up and does stuff. So
I think there is something that God honors about like when we take time aside in a significant chunk and we make a significant effort. Yeah. Set aside significant time and travel, a meaningful distance. I guess if you're in Moncton, he'll probably still bless you too. But you need it if you're in Moncton. Let's be honest. But I haven't introduced my Moncton thoughts on this podcast yet.
Hey,
but
Moncton, anyway. I do not share, nor do the opinions of AJ Thomas represent all the back corner or King's Church.
I kid. I love Monctonians.
Yes, you're here.
But yeah, no, I do think God honors that, right? Like it's you, whether you talk about, camp meeting in some of the earlier part of the tradition we're a part of, or whether you're talking pilgrimages in the Middle Ages, like I think there's just something about when we say, God, this is how much I want to meet with you. Yeah. He honors that.
Totally. So that's going to be awesome. We got you got an unofficial sponsor today. You got a free shout out?
Well, I'll give a shout out to OK Tire.
Look at this.
Here in Quispam-Sis. About a week ago, my wife's car just died in the middle of the city at like 11 o'clock at night. And we had to get it towed. And that was the place that we could get it towed to that was reasonably not that far from our house. And so we had it towed there. Never been there before. Didn't know like if these guys are cool or not or whatever. And they actually had the thing repaired and back on the road and ready to go by noon the next day.
Yes, sir.
Which is, I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround if you're trying to book in with a mechanic these days. And
Hey,
you know,
shout out.
Yeah, shout out. Seemed like they, I mean, I don't know, but seemed like they didn't like lie to us about anything crazy.
That's the big thing, right? Like, it's just
never
like,
know.
just as long as you're just being honest with me, I don't care. Like, but you know, and I know you could take advantage of me.
The first time a mechanic looks at me and says like, you could replace this, but I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
All right, I trust you.
Yeah, exactly. I am an OK Tire client as well. Not here in the Valley though.
No, I know.
I broke. Oh yeah, because you dropped me off there. Yeah, I'm on Adelaide Street. Paul's my guy.
Well,
He's
see,
been
now
taking
that's
care
where
of me for 10 years.
That's where Kelly usually takes it because she lives right close.
Yeah, Adelaide
or
and
works
St.
right
John.
close. But
this is a very local flavor moment.
very
in the
local
back corner.
But hey, if
sorry
you
to the dozens.
if
that
you
don't
break
live
down
here.
in the north end of St. John, you're going to want to know this. But no, actually, you can't drop a car off there at night. They have like a enclosure or whatever where everything's parked and it's chained up that late at night. So like we actually asked about that and they were like, no. They're like, but we can take it to the one in Quispamsis. We're like, well, conveniently that's like 4 minutes from our house. So let's do that.
Yep.
So shout out to all the OK tires in the world.
You're okay.
But particularly the two we just mentioned,
way to promise low and deliver high, OK Tire. it's just the service is okay.
Yeah, I know.
It's okay. It's not great. It's okay.
No, I respect that.
I do. That's like a hack in the Maritimes.
I'd go
right?
so far as to say it's A-okay.
Yeah. If you came out here with best tire,
Totally.
we'll see about
amazing
that.
tire.
We'll see about that
No
amazing
way.
tire.
Okay tire.
Like, okay.
That's possible.
Right.
That could live
I
up
feel
to
like
its name.
you sold yourself short.
Yeah.
I feel like you could have been more than OK Tire.
3-star tire.
Ron, what did you have for breakfast? Oh boy. Is this Usher?
Oh, this is
no,
gospel,
it's more Kirk
baby.
Franklin.
Yeah.
Well, we walked
Come on.
on a Sunday morning, shook hands at the door like we always done before. Then I turned to my brother with a smile so bright, said, "Hey Ron, what did you have for breakfast? Hey Ron, what did you have
Come on.
for breakfast? Did you fill your cup
Ooh.
with the joy of the Lord?"
Come on. This is a banger. Keep it going.
Or that sweet, sweet mercy. Did you taste and see that the Lord is good?
That's awesome.
There we go.
I loved that one. I think that's my new favorite.
It is?
I'm a sucker for gospel.
I am too, dude.
Those chords are just. Turn it back up. It's like-
Bible had a feast divine. Now my soul is full and my heart's alive.
oh my.
What did you have for breakfast?
I like
That's
it.
super good.
That is good, man.
So
Pretty good.
We're gonna have to piece together a playlist. We're gonna have to put an album out or something.
Oh, we could
Totally.
easily.
Let's drop
is it-
drop the Back Corners first album.
Who gets the credit for the creativity of this album? Where we put in the origin of it, like the genesis, but
I think we just credit whoever
AI.
the AI is.
Just AI.
Brought to you by Brent, AJ, Ron. Jay helps us out with this stuff, right?
ChatGPT.
the musical genius of ChatGPT.
That's right.
That was really good.
No, that was.
I loved that one. So what did you have for breakfast, Ron?
Well, I went on a little breakfast date with Megan, so I went to Pure and Simple and had a skillet.
Ooh,
Look at you. All right.
So fancy.
That's
It was very
Is
good.
that our third non-Cheerios answer? Fourth non-Cheerios
Wow.
answer. That's 4. My goodness.
that's I'm shocked.
Yeah. And we're on, is this episode 13? This is,
This is 13 BC.
13 BC.
I
So,
think, yep.
yeah, so you're just under a third non-Cheerios at
Wow.
this point.
Look at that.
Wow.
Yep. Well done.
Roughly 30%.
I've been
This
trying.
is this is episode Baker's Dozen.
This is. Oh, dude, we totally should. Welcome to the Baker's Dozens and Baker's Dozen.
Yeah. We before we get to the interview with Jon Tyson, we wanted to do a couple recurring segments.
Yeah.
One of our favorites is little tinfoil hat time, little conspiracy corner.
Love this. I'm ready for this one. I've been stoked on this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in our atmosphere at all, you probably have seen this stuff online too. But this is our first chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
Ron, do you have the video? Let's cue up the big reveal here.
So apparently, through the use of LiDAR, they have discovered that there are enormous structures underneath the Great Pyramid that go kilometers deep into the earth.
So this is pretty much breaking news because the new findings were announced on the 16th of March at a press conference held by the team who were studying the Great Pyramid of Giza, because what's been discovered is that there are huge structures coming down from the base of the pyramid deep into the bedrock. In fact, over 600 meters deep, which then connects to structures that extend up to 2 kilometers below the surface of the ground.
That is bonkers.
That is insane.
Is there like, there's nobody coming out saying they didn't discover that. Like, no one knows what it is.
Yeah.
But these structures that run 2 kilometers beneath the Great Pyramid,
Like, that's a long ways.
2 kilometers.
Yeah.
Like, that there's even a 2 kilometer structure.
Yeah, that's what, like
Is-
2 kilometers, like to walk, not that far. To build something thousands of years ago,
And install it vertically
yeah,
under what right now is sand.
yeah. I mean, there's got to be bedrock not that far down. Well, that's what they said. It goes into the bedrock,
Yeah.
right? Which even that, okay, how do you get into the bedrock? That's not an easy
So
task.
so what in the world? What do you think? What's your take?
I think the reason there's all that sand there, I think they just built it, then just brought sand in and buried it. Did you not do that in the sandbox
Let's build
as a child?
the most complex, crazy structure ever. Let's
Right.
bury it
And then just bury
let
it.
these fools find it.
Totally.
3,000
They're
years
trolling
from
us
now.
from beyond the grave. They're sitting in-
or from beyond the galaxy.
I mean, that is this does kind of tap into that whole
That's a long MP3 when you.
it is.
Yeah.
The whole ancient apocalypse thing. Who's that? The guy
Graham Hancock.
Yeah, Graham Hancock.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's got a whole thing on Netflix about this idea of like these lost civilizations that clearly had access to some level of technology beyond, you know, what we
Yeah.
would assume. And I think generally he at least, you know, hints towards the idea that they were aliens or had some sort of outside help.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert on this stuff, admittedly, but I have dabbled.
I mean, I binged the whole
Did you?
Netflix series.
Yeah. And I mean, he makes. I don't know if I would say Hancock makes good points, but he asks fair questions.
Yep.
And there are, without a doubt, you know, things on the earth, whether it's like, you know, snake mounds, some of these old, there are pyramid structures that are way older than even the ones in Egypt found around the world. And like, people have no explanation for how these things got there other than somebody put it there at some time. And the typical approved narrative of human history doesn't necessarily have great answers for some of the stuff that, like a pyramid in Giza, that clearly has more going on to it than the tomb of a pharaoh.
Yeah.
Like there's something there. Now there have been like, you can go on the, I mean, we probably should have our tinfoil hats on for this. But you can go deep down the rabbit hole of this, and you probably come out the other side a flat earther. So be careful. But like there's stuff on like even like Egypt and the pyramids, and like it used to be called Chem, and that I mean I'm gonna butcher this, but basically like, these are like chemical industrial power plants. Like that's one of the big theories, is that like these were like super power plants. They powered a whole ancient civilization that had advanced technology and all this crazy stuff. You know, that's I don't know if it's that, but it's something.
I think we have a hard time, we as a culture have a hard time with this idea of a more advanced ancient civilization because it goes against our narrative of constant progress.
Yes.
Right? But I mean, if you look not on the scale we're talking about here, but this concept is a tested fact in history.
In recent history.
Well, like if you look at
The Romans.
yeah, if you look at Great Britain
Yes.
in the Middle Ages,
They didn't know what this stuff
and
was.
rewind back to the Roman Empire, like it was a significant downshift
They
in the level
lost.
of technology, the
Yep.
level of sophistication, and even understanding not just what they could maintain. Like if we get nuked or there's a zombie apocalypse tomorrow, all kinds of like my computer's going to stop working,
Yeah.
the power's going to go out, but I will still know what electricity was.
Yes.
Right?
But how many years? But how
Well,
many
that's what I'm
years have to
saying.
go by before that gets out of the human consciousness?
So it was a significant enough devolution
yes.
that they couldn't even conceive of what this would have been, right? Like,
Like just to what you're just to be clear on what you're talking about. So if you go to great, like you see this stuff in the UK, like there's still like Roman remnants.
yeah, the Roman Empire extended into the UK.
And in the Dark Ages, they basically there was just a cutoff that they lost. They lost that connection to like what the Roman Empire even was.
Right.
And so
they
there was a
didn't-
whole rediscovery.
The
of all-
Romans had plumbing, they didn't.
yeah,
The Romans had in-floor heating,
Yes.
they didn't.
Yeah.
The Romans had construction techniques
Architecture
for
and all-
aqueducts and all that kind of stuff that they just did not know how to do anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, even to this day, we don't know how to make, I don't think, fully understand how the Romans made the mortar that holds together a lot of
Really?
those aqueducts and stuff, because it's like, well, if we did, we'd copy it, right?
right. Because it's
But-
better or something.
Yeah, it's well, it's
obviously that
lasted.
stuff's
It's,
still
yeah,
standing.
it's like 2,000 years old, still
Yeah.
going strong, right?
Yeah.
Like walk around any place in downtown, pick a city, but here in St. John, for example, and you'll see brick buildings that are starting to crumble that are 100 or 200 years old, and they need to be repointed, like the mortar replaced and stuff. So that idea that a more advanced technology, or a civilization with more advanced technology, and when we say technology too, like mortar is a technology.
Yeah.
right?
Horses are a technology.
Right. Like it's not, technology doesn't mean microchips.
or flying saucers or whatever.
Totally, but
Yeah.
that they could have
Although
more
it
advanced.
could.
Totally, I mean something, right? But that a society with more advanced technology could have come and gone
Yeah.
is not a crazy thought. I would say the level of advancement and loss that we're talking about would make it makes
Yeah.
the notion of a 6,000 year old human civilization a little more challenging, though.
Yes.
Because it would have to have time to get that advanced and then lose all that advancement so far.
it would have to be tens of thousands of years, like to
Would
be
seem to make
that.
sense.
Like otherwise, I just don't think there's a like you can find traces of the Romans. You know what I mean?
Totally,
Like
yeah.
we put that together. Like
Yeah.
oh okay, but there's other than these few major mysteries. There's not a lot. Like why haven't we found it's like some of these guys like Graham Hancock, like they're like, no, these were like advanced societies. They had flying machines and like all kinds of stuff that tech we don't even have now. Well, why haven't we found an old iPad or something?
Well, and it seems to me that like when you see the beginning of significant advancement, although there's a bias that could be playing in here, but when you begin to see a significant advancement in a society, keeping track of that just becomes a thing, right? They
Yeah.
start writing stuff down. So the idea that there was a civilization advanced enough to explain all these unexplainable structures and all this kind of stuff, but they never figured out a way to write stuff down. That just seems strange to me. Like even the level of coordinating you'd have to do between people require, like some of these ancient inscriptions they find these days, like they're not all like the grand history of the king. They're like bills of sale and you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yeah.
it's everyday stuff. And so it seems to me wild that a civilization could organize itself to that level to accomplish that
Yeah.
and never write anything down, never make a
Yeah.
record anywhere.
Unless something cataclysmic happened, like a flood,
Yeah.
right? Like a global flood, for instance. Like I think that would be the argument that, and I think like guys like Graham Hancock and the ancient alien people, that's part of their thing. Is
I mean,
that
yeah,
they're-
the ancient flood narrative is
it's in every
it's pretty much universal.
every like culture's
Yeah.
collective memory.
But
it's
even
in.
then, you're thinking if you're carving stuff onto tablets, right? What the flood's not going to wipe that out.
yeah, how haven't we found one?
If you've got a lot of, I was watching a thing this morning about the I believe it was the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus.
Yeah.
And they were saying that there's an inscription on like a local, like an amphitheater thing there. Like it's carved into the rocks that were the stones that people sat on. Like that's not going to wash away in a flood, right?
Yeah, unless there was a flood and then thousands of years. And
Well,
like,
so then-
and like maybe the flood like was so violent. Like again, the Bible's pretty clear on the level of magnitude. Like maybe it is a truly. I've always been kind of like the localized flood theorist, but like maybe it truly was global. Maybe there are some takes on like the Sahara in Africa, for instance. Like there's some people out there that there's a place you can look in the desert in the Sahara that is like this circular pattern that looks like a city, basically. And like there's people that think that was Atlantis.
Interesting.
Like that. It was just, we should really have our tinfoil hats on right now.
And this is why we have a podcast, because you can't talk about this stuff when you're preaching.
Right? Like imagine
Can you imagine?
went on a little rabbit trail. Go with me here, people.
We're just going to take a quick break from Romans. I just wanted to, there's this city in the Sahara Desert.
Pull it up on Google Earth, would you?
So are you familiar with the gap theory of Genesis 1 and 2?
That there's eons between them.
Between
Yes.
verse 1 and verse 2?
Yes.
I mean, that would fit with this.
Well, the word. So in Genesis, let's go Bible here because it's really what we want to do. And like the word for day in the Genesis account is aeon, right? Where you get the word eon.
Yeah.
Like I really don't see how you can take the what is poetic text seriously and turn it into 6 24-hour days. Like it doesn't really.
The notion of the literal 6-day creation to me is, you got to read backwards to get there anyways, because 24 hours are not what makes a day. 24 hours is the way we figured out to track
with the moon,
with the moon and the sun.
Yep.
And so you can't have a literal day
until day 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Until God creates those heavenly bodies. Never mind the physics. I mean, you certainly could argue that God somehow made a way for the earth to be just suspended in space before he made the stuff that we rotate around and all that. But yeah, no, I feel like
what
that's asking questions of the text it's not answering. But I have always been fascinated by that notion because, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and then it says, and the earth was formless and void. And then you go like, why would God create it formless and void? What you could just mean he created matter as a concept, or again, it can be poetic language that
the math and the infrastructure behind it. Like that's one of the big things about the Big Bang is that all of the laws to uphold the universe had to be preset before that initial bang.
Totally. But the conspiracy theorist in me loves the idea that God created the world. That's a standalone chapter.
Yeah.
And then again, jump ahead however many thousands or millions of years, something has happened, and now that earth he's created has been made formless and void, right? And the Spirit is hovering over the waters. Waters represent chaos, usually in ancient kind of frameworks. And so that idea that like somehow things had devolved back into chaos. And it's interesting, but of course that wouldn't answer your question of how did some of those technologies, like for example with the Egyptians who built the pyramids, like we have a line of sight to them through history. And so we don't know how they did that, but we know who they were and when they were.
Yep.
And it wasn't before some, massive thing that wiped out all of.
Yeah, but the pyramids themselves, there are a lot of questions around that. Like, did the Egyptians actually build those? And even some of the just the labor involved, like it just doesn't, again, we should have our tinfoil hats on, but like it just doesn't really add up super good. Even like the quarries where they would have gotten those stones are like way far away, apparently. Like they're nowhere near.
Have you ever watched any of the videos where they try to recreate that stuff?
No.
There's a fascinating one that I remember watching. This guy, I think he was like an engineer, but like at the local Ford plant, like not, and I want to say he was in Michigan. If it wasn't Michigan, it was somewhere Michigan-y, like just this very blue collar middle. And he decided he was going to figure out, I think for him, he was doing Stonehenge, but same idea. Like, how do we move these massive? And he figured out a way that he could move those by himself.
Wow.
Using, it had a lot to do with actual just smaller like rocks. And he would roll, like get a pebble basically under it, and then you could pivot it. There was this whole counterbalance thing, and he would it was crazier. I've seen the big heads on Easter Island.
Yeah.
And they would walk those, like you could pull either side.
Wow.
It is, I think sometimes, point being, I think sometimes we maybe underestimate how intelligent they were.
Exactly.
And, for us, the idea of like this could take hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Maybe they just spent hundreds of years doing it. Like,
and like throwing slave labor at it or whatever.
totally,
Like, it's
yeah.
like,
Like cathedrals
it's plausible.
There's all kinds of cathedrals in Europe that were, no, this is 150 years to slap this bad boy together.
I think my like overall, like I love that stuff. Like that discovery under the pyramids, just like that is so exciting to me. Like I think my pastoral takeaway would be, like, in thinking about maybe who's listening to this, would be a couple things. I'm very much okay admitting I don't think we as a species know very much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we sound like we do. You hear Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about the universe and stuff, and it sounds pretty buttoned down, but we have a pretty good track record of like not knowing what we're talking about.
Totally.
So, and I think just having some humility instead of hubris is a really good thing, and like just being open to the possibilities and like how quickly things can change over 1,000 years or 2,000 years or 10,000 years. I think that's fair. The big thing I would encourage people to do, whether it's talk about like ancient civilization or the collective memory of the flood and multiple societies, or aliens or any of that, it's like or the Big Bang, like what does that do to your theology and your faith? Like that to me is the big question. Like, do you have a worldview that can absorb those kinds of mysteries?
Yeah.
Because the good news is your Bible sure can.
Yeah.
You know, like the Bible can, and it actually gives some pretty good, not explanations, but like at least boundaries for some of these things to operate in.
I don't understand, like, when people, some people I think they think that because Jesus is the answer, they mean that means Jesus has all the answers. I mean, Jesus does.
Yes.
I'm sure he knows.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what's going on but as in, like, knowing Jesus or what you find in your Bible can answer all those questions. And I don't think that's what the Bible is trying to do. Like, it's the Bible doesn't contain the cure for the common cold, other than, the ultimate restoration of all things at the end. Like,
yes.
There's an eschatological cure for the common cold.
Yeah.
But like, what's the best way to cook a steak? Like, it's not in there. What is the history of all the peoples of the earth? Well, only in the broadest sense, that ultimately we exist because it was God's will for us to exist. Yep. But like,
and then a couple nods to, common threads. Mm-hmm. Like the sons of God and the Nephilim and the global flood.
But even then, it's more raising issues than answering questions, and a lot of that stuff.
For sure.
Like clearly, you take our good old friends the Nephilim. Clearly, Scripture is not actually trying to help us understand them in any great detail.
No, it does almost cause more problems.
Right. It's just an offhanded reference.
But I've been thankful though. Like that's actually been like since I've discovered some of that in the last 5 or 6 years. Or at least looked into it a little bit more. I've been encouraged that that's there, and it gives a little bit of explanation for me for things like the Greek pantheon and, those stories that humans have told. It's just an iteration of that same story. Like it's helpful.
I guess what I'm just trying to say is, some people are like, oh, like the Bible never mentioned anything about this. It's like the Bible doesn't mention anything about a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like the Bible is not trying to explain every answer in all of existence. It's trying to help us find and know our way back to God.
Yeah.
And so
it's about Jesus ultimately, the Bible. Yeah.
And so like, there's Paul was a tent maker, but it doesn't include instructions on how to make tents. Right.
Like, it'd be a big book.
That's right. Like it is in terms of its length, not in terms of its impact, but in terms of its length, it's a finite book, and it's just not going to touch on everything. And it's not trying to answer every question we might have. I do think it answers everything we need to know the answer to, which leads to the other thing is to go like, if whatever, and I'm not saying I think it is, I haven't looked into it, but if we found out that what's underneath those pyramids is a giant battery, what does that do to my theology? Jack squat.
Nothing. Yeah, totally.
Not a thing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that, well, if there were batteries under the pyramids, the Bible would have told us. No, probably wouldn't have.
I think maybe a helpful way to think about the Bible is it's really not about what you need to know. It's about who you need to know.
Absolutely.
Right. Like it's and all the what's in there are just pointing to the who. Like
the old language that you'd get in some of the like statements of faith would be like all things necessary for salvation.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is how we understand the gospel. This is how we understand God's will for us. not how we understand everything that has ever happened throughout all of history across the entire world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even you look, is it the end of, is it the Gospel of John?
Yeah.
Whose whole thing is like, I'm going to tell you all about Jesus. And then he goes, there's no way I can tell you everything about
Here's
Jesus.
the necessary things that are going to help you.
Right.
But if I wanted to include all of the miracles he did, there'd be no paper on earth, he said, to do it all. Like, yeah, that's cool. Let's do one more segment, then we'll get to Jon Tyson here. We'll be quick. We'll be quick on this. You want to cue us up?
Yeah, sure. We can do a little overrated, overhated.
We need some theme music for overrated, overhated. We don't have it.
We probably should.
We've got one for Keep Her Sweet, but we don't have one for. So, how about?
Let's talk about Christian school. Many Christian parents today have significant concerns about both the things their children are being taught in public school. Significant concerns about the things
NyQuil.
their children being taught in public schools. Public schools have your kids for more waking hours than anyone else, sometimes even including parents, and thus are an incredibly formative influence on so many. And so many parents love the idea of sending their kids to a Christian school because of this. On the other hand, Christian schools are sometimes seen to offer a substandard education with less options for both classes and extracurriculars, and can be seen as a retreat from the world that advocates our call to be salt and light. Given these tensions, what do you think about Christian schools, overrated or overhated?
All right, let's do like 10 minutes on this.
Sure.
Christian school. I don't think I can give a yes or no on this. I send my kids to public school because that's the option we have.
Yeah.
Really right now. There are, again, every parent I think has to prioritize what they think is going to be most healthy and helpful for their kids. And no matter what you do, whether it's public school, Christian school, or homeschool, I have to raise my kids and I have to be out in front of their education. I think there are advantages and disadvantages to all three systems. We can talk about what those are. My kids go to Rainbow Catechism. All day, every day. They're getting that shoved down their throats all the time of, progressive ideology, although it's not as bad as it used to be. Thank God. But that's something that Melanie and I have had to calculate and think through. We've weighed the options of the Christian schools available to us, and we decided to keep our kids in public school for a number of reasons. One of them being the social component. I went to public school and I'm glad I did. It really served me later in life. I think you're going to have to learn one way or the other how to live in the real world. And there's some wisdom in putting your kids in Christian school to shepherd them and shelter them and give them the right foundation. I get that. And if, we've thought about building a Christian school here many times and just haven't pulled the trigger because the evangelistic mission of King's Church has just taken so much focus. But I get it. I really get it. I don't think Christian schools are overrated or overhated. I think it comes down to the parent and how you're going to navigate it with your kids. Both myself and my sister went to public school. We went to two different public schools, and my younger brother went to private Christian school. And I don't think those are right or wrong. I think they just are. Yeah. And I think good parenting is good parenting, and school is just one tool in the tool belt of raising kids, and it is always going to come with some advantages and disadvantages. So it's a non-take. It's a non-take.
So non-committal.
Raise your kids. A lot of us just don't have that option. I guess is that and my wife works, I work, so homeschool hasn't been something. I know there are Christians that have real strong opinions about your kids should be homeschooled or in Christian school. How can you send them to a secular school? I'm like, I've had some pretty hurtful stuff said to me actually about that. By people I think they were well intended. But they were jerks.
Well-intended jerks. Are you a pastor by any chance?
How dare you send your kids to public school? You're a terrible dad.
Yep.
It's like,
okay. There are people who have very strong opinions.
Yeah, there sure are. Yeah.
I mean, I went to Christian school growing up, and I'll be honest with you, it was a pretty negative experience for me. in a lot of ways.
So it depends on the school too.
Very much depends on the school. The school that I went to, from all accounts I hear, is a great school now, but at the time it was pretty weird. It was pretty insular. The approach to teaching and curriculum they used was a really bad fit for both my learning styles and my learning disabilities. And yeah, it wasn't. I mean, would public school have been better? I don't know. I didn't go to, you know what I mean? Like you can't. Right. I didn't do. Well, I did do both eventually, but
you seem like a Christian school guy.
Well, you know, and I genuinely, I do like. You talked about the social skills thing. Like I do think some of my social awkwardness comes from that. Like if I would have stayed, I went to public school for grades 11 and 12. If I would have stayed in that school, I would have been the only kid in my graduating class. Like it was a small school.
Christian school.
Yeah. Like it was, I think it was 30, my last year, there was 36 kids from K to 12.
Wow.
So you're talking a couple of kids a grade kind of a thing.
11th grader.
Yeah. My wife went to Christian school growing up, and she had a great experience. Now she grew up in the States.
Bigger
her
school.
Right. Her Christian school, I think, was the same. Her Christian high school was about the same size as my public high school that I went to, like hundreds and hundreds of kids. Yeah. Very different experience. Anything you could do at public school, you could do there in terms of, you know, extracurriculars. Like they had a lab, they had a gym, they had, all that kind of stuff. We did, our kids, I mean, depending on which kid you're talking about, did all three. We homeschooled, we public schooled, and we sent our youngest son to Christian school for his last 3 years. It was an incredibly positive experience.
You've done all of them.
We've done them all, yeah. And yeah, I would say I have, because of my own experiences, I probably in the past overhated Christian school.
Yeah.
And so I guess I wouldn't disagree with anything you said. I would just say that, yeah, if you've tended to be, more slanted against them, and again, you got to, depends on whatever your local school is. But I know for our son Isaac, it was a super good experience for him, even academically. Like he got such a better education there. I just mean in terms of like math, you know what I mean? Not like in terms of like the
better
philosophical environment and all that, just higher standards, better teaching.
That's a huge factor, I think, in private school. Obviously.
Well, and that's, I mean, the school that he went to, HCA in Halifax, like
we have a bunch of people at King's Halifax whose kids go there.
Tons of students there who don't come from Christian families just because their parents know they're going to get a better actual education. Like not
a lot of Christian schools are half full of kids who aren't Christian.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of Muslim students there.
They don't
want multiple. Like
they don't want the woke stuff, and they want the good.
And they want the rigor.
Focus.
Totally. Yeah. And so, I would say, for me, historically, I've tended to overhate because of my own kind of, which if that's not a metaphor for so many other things, right? Like I had a bad experience with one narrow wedge of something.
Therefore
all of it's terrible. Yeah. So anyway, I would say to parents who are, super in favor or super against it, maybe think it through. But I would also say too, I guess the other thought that I would throw out there, the Christian school I went to was very much based on sheltering kids, which I don't think is always the most healthy thing. But I do think there's that pendulum can swing so far the other way that parents go, it's my job to throw my kids into a public school system as salt and light,
right?
Which your kid might not be there yet, man. Like they might not. They may need a little more. They may need a little bit more of a.
There's inherent danger in that.
Totally, yeah. Sure. Not sheltered as in, I don't believe in sheltering your kids from sin, because I think I actually believe in exposing them pretty aggressively, but controlling the exposure.
to sin? What do you?
Well, so here's an example.
Here, like the cigarettes.
Not to sinning, to sin. Oh. So when I was a youth pastor, I used to take my youth group.
Where is this going?
I used to take them to Toronto on a missions trip.
Okay.
And we'd stay right downtown. And one of the things we would
say, like to the casino.
Well, no, I would grab all the guys who were on the trip, usually 6 or 8 guys. Some night, midnight, 1 o'clock, we'd go down and we'd just sit on the sidewalk, and because there was prostitutes working everywhere,
right?
And we'd just watch minivan after minivan with car seat in the back come pick these girls up, drive off, come back 20 minutes, and I just made them sit and watch it for about an hour, and then I go, boys, that's where lust takes you if it's unchecked.
Yeah.
Right. And I think,
Yes.
the model of Christian school I grew up in, the whole idea was don't tell them about sin. And if you do tell them it's horrible. And so many kids that came through that,
Right.
like as in it's no fun.
Don't ever have sex. It's
Right.
gross and dirty, but save it for your wife.
And then they tried it and they were like, actually, it's pretty rad.
Fantastic.
I highly recommend it.
You
And-
were lying.
Or the same thing with like drinking and all that. And so rather than go, you should not know about this, to go, you should know where this leads.
Yeah.
And so I think, how much your kid can shoulder peer pressure and indoctrination is the bigger question to me than, just sheltering them as in, you don't want them to know any of this stuff exists. No, like whatever's going on in public school, if your kid's in Christian school, you should be talking to them about that stuff.
There's
but
like
you get to control the narrative of that exposure.
The analogy you're using, I think maybe this will help kind of tie it all up in a bow, is like, it's like an immune system. Like we're trying to develop these healthy kids.
Yeah.
And part of health is actually exposure to, to sickness, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, when you send your kid to daycare, they're going to get exposed to cold and flu and all that. And actually they need it at some level. It actually teaches their body how to fight back and how to be healthy. And I think there is good parenting inevitably will allow, your kids. I mean, we've all seen, the homeschool kid that shows up at college.
Yeah.
And they literally go from living in a bubble to being exposed to all the viral stuff.
Yep.
Right. And it's just like they get smoked by it.
But you do see the opposite too of the kid who's like totally prepared for it because their parents were so
what I mean.
attentive with it, who was also homeschooled.
Yeah, I'm using an extreme there of so yeah. Overall, I don't have I think it's like
that's where I would say so yeah, let your kid play on the monkey bars. It's not the end of the world if they get exposed to the cold vibes. But also maybe tell them not to lick the doorknob of a public bathroom.
Great book recommendation here is it's called the meds are not helping here. It's that one on kids, the digital stuff. What's Jonathan Haidt? Is
that the something anxiety age of
the anxious generation?
Anxious generation.
And in it, in the first half, he talks about how we've inverted like appropriate dangers. We have allowed our kids to have access to dangers that are like very damaging, such as like devices and internet, untethered internet access.
Will break your mind, but you can't skin your knee.
But yeah, you won't let them play on the monkey bars or go outside by themselves or walk to the store or all we have to like kind of reset kind of the appropriate dangers. So that book's fantastic, by the way. It's not overrated or overhated. It's like a hockey stick. It's like, it's a tool that you have to use.
I don't know what this has to do with the
no,
stick. I'm with you.
School is a tool that you have to use. Yeah. I'm not going to blame the school if I don't score with my kids. You know what I mean? Like,
I would agree with you too that like you have to raise your kids.
Yeah.
And so it really does depend a lot on the kid, or even again, it's not a thing you have to make the day your kid is born, I'm going to make a decision and that's it until grade 12.
Right. You might have to change it based on how they're developing. Totally. I will say score one for public school though. And like this generation that are growing up in what is a bit of a hostile environment. Man, these Christian kids that are out there in public school have freaking deep roots.
Yep.
Like there is a level of like just, security in their faith. Like I went to public school as a Christian kid. I was way more like ashamed of the light of God in me. Like I really wrestled with that. Like just, people, we're from the what would people think if they knew I was a Jesus freak era, right?
Totally.
Like that song doesn't even work now.
We were kind of, I think, towards the end of the era of like you had a shot at being a Christian and being popular.
Yeah.
And there was kind of like how do I keep both?
I manage both worlds? Yeah.
And I do think kids today know that's just not going to be a thing. And there is I
There's
always
a silver lining though on the like authenticity culture, and like you get to be you.
Totally.
You know, like even credit to the wokies.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll never forget hearing my son Isaac, and this is when he was still in public school. He was strong in his faith before he made that switch, but I remember hearing him down in the basement talking to some friends of his on Discord, I think, maybe Zoom, whatever they were talking. This was middle of the pandemic or towards then. Anyways, they were talking about something they were going to. No, it would have been before the pandemic. Anyways, they were talking about like some party they were going to go to or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going. And we're only hearing half the conversation, but you can kind of fill in the blanks. And I go, I'm just not into like the drinking and all that kind of stuff. And he goes, well, because I'm a Christian. And one of the kids on the other end goes, well, I'm a Christian and I'm going. And he goes, yeah, no, but like I'm a real one. And he was like 14, 15 years old, just matter of fact. But he'd already understood the like, no, I don't mean
I live this.
Like my grandparents will be buried after a service at a church. Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm
a disciple.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
There was like, I was a pretty bold kid. I don't know that I would have thrown that out.
Yeah. So we raise disciples.
Yeah.
And part of it's their education. So
absolutely.
Good luck, parents.
Speaking of parenting.
Yes. Good segue.
Thank you. And good books.
Yes.
Our guest today, Jon Tyson, written an amazing book called The Intentional Father.
Among other amazing books.
Yes. Also one was at Raising Resilient Daughters, something like that.
Yep. Fighting Shadows.
We'll refer to all of them later in the podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
And Sad, we want to throw that over to him now.
Yeah. So enjoy. This is our interview with Jon Tyson.
That was my time machine noise. Hey, Dozens. On today's episode, we're going to have an amazing interview with Jon Tyson. It was recorded at XY Conference. We're going to get into some more mature themes. And so if you have kids listening who were too young to be at XY, they're probably too young to listen to this too.
Oh, welcome to the back corner.
Welcome to the back corner. Welcome to the Dozens.
We had a few that caught the cue there. The Dozens and the Dozens.
There we go.
John, you have
come on.
You have recently you got to preach at Passion Conference. Yep. You got to do the Gather 25, like probably one of the biggest things like in church history. Yep. Did you ever think you would be in the back corner?
To be honest with you, they pale in significance to this moment. This is a moment of moments. This is an alpha moment.
When they write the Jon Tyson biography, they're going to say, and it all led up to this moment in the back corner.
It feels kind of like a peak human experience.
That's good.
Sometimes when you look, you can't see what the Lord's been doing over the course of your, and then all of a sudden there's this moment where it clicks and you go, oh man, this is it. It's
what an
all
arc
been
of
leading
redemption.
towards
It's beautiful.
You're going to go home tonight and you say, it was a great week, but then we ended it in this podcast.
I do promise you this, as I was saying earlier, I will have one of these booths for Q&As for the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's the best.
This is it.
It's the best.
Stools are dead to me.
In Manhattan, you could rent this out for what, about $4,000 a month?
This is considerable space.
So we're going to get right in. We're going to talk about fathering because you wrote a book called The Intentional Father, which is phenomenal. If you guys don't have it, you're going to hear a little bit about it here over our next hour. Before we do that, though, we do have one tradition on the back corner where we like to rank things. We like to take time to just rank whatever we want. It can be just nonsense or meaningful things. We originally called it Mount Rushmore, this segment. Okay. However, we are in a trade war, so we are now we now call this Mountainous Top 4.
Mountainous Top 4.
That feels good.
Yeah, it's
Mountainous Top 4.
So we quickly want to rank top 4 fictional dads. Top 4 fictional dads. So from movies, TV, books, who are the best archetypes in fiction of dads?
There's one clear winner.
Okay.
That is Cormac McCarthy's book, The Road.
Oh, yeah, that's
It is the father, don't know his name.
Just the father.
He's just the dad in Cormac McCarthy's The Road who helps his son navigate a post-apocalyptic world.
That's tough to top.
he is the top. So that's it.
Who's the guy from Walking Dead? What's his name in that?
Oh, goodness.
Rick is
Grimes.
nowhere near.
Coral. That's how I just always Coral.
Rick is nowhere near as good. He is a shadow of a man compared to the father.
Rick
Compared to the
is so
father.
insignificant, he has to have a name.
Yeah, Rick's named.
have to say
When you're
Rick, so you know
just the father, I mean, that's strong.
All right, I got number 1.
Yep.
This is in ascending order. So number 4, Danny Tanner
Can't go wrong.
from Full House fame. Single
I've
dad.
never seen that.
And he's out here raising these girls with his bros.
Strong.
It's good. Philip Banks, a.k.a. Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince.
I've not seen a single episode of Full House or Fresh Prince.
I'm going number 3, Ned Flanders
Good call.
from The Simpsons.
Legit good call.
Never seen an episode of The Simpsons.
Oh, John.
I am culturally deprived.
Ned
really are.
Flanders is one of the best.
Next time you get COVID,
Yeah.
start at season 1 of The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And in about 15 years.
Yeah. And then number 4, I'm going Carl Winslow. This guy loved his wife, loved his family, police officer in the Chicago PD, and raised this zany kid next door named Steve Urkel.
I
also,
appreciate
so.
the taking in a kid who seemed to need a father figure.
Yep.
That's legit.
You got 4?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm going Red Foreman. That '70s show.
Okay.
Also for the same reason, right? There's a kid. You know, what's the classic line about Hyde? You're like the son I never had, and Eric says, "But I'm your son." And he goes, "Yeah, you're the son I did have," and he's like the son I never had. I'm gonna go Hank Hill.
Oh.
King of the Hill.
Yeah.
Because it's important to teach your kids about Sweet Lady Propane.
You're missing the point. Anyway.
I'm going Ron Swanson.
All right.
Because remember when he starts dating Xena, Warrior Princess, right? He kind of becomes like a stepdad to her kids.
John's just like, I don't even know the reference.
I literally have not seen a single thing that you were talking about.
Well, that's because you're not wasting your life as per last night, right? And then I'm gonna go Appa from Kim's Convenience.
That's
Little CanCon for you. A little CanCon for you.
No, don't know that one.
Oh no, he's great. I mean, it's a terrible show, but he's a great character. It's Canadian, so it's got that like shot on a budget feel.
Yes.
Yeah, no, he's like an immigrant dad trying to figure out, how to exist in the weirdness of Toronto from Korea, and then he goes on to be a fighter pilot in Star Wars. So
there you have it.
It's a pretty big trajectory for Appa.
That's pretty good. There you have it, the top 4 fictional dads. John, you wrote this book, Intentional Father. I picked it up. It was, I guess, a couple years ago. You would have released it now. My son's 14, and I've started in on the primal path with him myself. In this, you give a vision of basically the intentional father is a type of dad that you're advocating for. Why did you write this book, and break down for us what the vision of an intentional father is? And
well, there's probably 3 reasons I wrote it. Number 1, just personally, I have a son. He's 24 now, but I'll never forget. I was in Bible college in Texas. I was working as a butcher at Albertsons, and my boss was a bull rider. He was a bull rider working at an Albertsons supermarket chopping up meat. And I was just a Bible college student, worked as a janitor as well at a church. And I remember driving back from the doctor when they were like, "You are having a son." And I had this feeling of joy. Wow, this is amazing. Also had no insurance in America. So that wasn't great. I just remember thinking, crap, I don't know how to be a dad. My dad is a good man. I really want to honor him. But he grew up in a boarding school in India. And my grandfather was a good man, but a bad dad. He was just absent. Old school British, you know, dump your kid and if you don't hate your family, you're not worthy of me. So my dad just did not have the tools, man. I mean, I just didn't get any of the stuff. Not his fault. I just remember thinking, I want more for my son and I don't know how to get it. So part 1 was just this burning hunger. I don't want to screw my kid up. I'm going to screw my kid up and I don't want to. And so something in me crystallized, like I've got to figure out how to be a better dad. Number two, I was like, okay, let me go research how to raise sons. There's not that much out there, and it's all very dated.
Yeah.
You know, there was like How to Raise a Modern Day Knight. Okay, that was like probably the best book out there. And I was like, we're not in Camelot, man. You know what I mean? It's like the world has changed so much. So I was like, I feel like there's an opportunity I got to research this. Yeah. So part of it was like I got to figure this out. And then number three, so I basically read the canon on how rites of passage function in ancient societies, a 6-step process that almost every society in history has had, realized we don't do that anymore. And then I was like, I think I need to recover this. And so I sort of just built out this light model on a notepad at a cigar bar, sat down, just jotted it out, started doing it with my son when he turned 13. And almost every dad I knew was like, what is that thing and where is that? Yeah. I was like, I'm kind of making it up. Here's a bunch of stuff I read. And then I actually hadn't really planned to turn it into a book.
It was just something you were doing.
Yeah, I was doing it for my son because I love him. I was doing it because I felt like there was a need to do it. And then so the bloke from Barna, who's an old friend of mine, was like, man, you got to turn this into a book. And I was like, I don't have time to turn this into a book. And he's like, yes, you do. And I was like, okay, I do. Yeah. And then we turn it into a book. Yeah.
You stopped watching Yellowstone, and the rest is history.
Oh, Yellowstone's going to haunt me for the rest of my life, perpetually weaponized against me.
We all felt that deeply.
You did. You're like,
about 6 months from now, someone's going to talk about the transformational message that was shared by that Yellowstone guy at the conference.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name, but he was from Yellowstone.
Montana.
He changed my whole life.
You in the book, like, you contrast different types of dads.
Yeah.
Like you sort of, like, there's the intentional father that you build that out and what that looks like. We'll talk about that. But what are like the other? You talked about like ignorance and like different. Like,
so I just want to say this. If you were to ask, so both of my kids are adults. My daughter's just about to finish university and go to graduate school. My son is done with college. He's married. He's moved on with his life. This book's not called How to Be the Best Dad. It's not called How to Be a Great Dad. It's certainly not called How to Be a Perfect Dad. And I was not great or perfect, but I was intentional. Every man can be intentional.
Right.
Every man can say, I've got a vision, and I'm going to do better than my dad did without any judgment, and I'm going to build a pathway out of how to do it. So I want to make that really clear. If you talked about, like I asked my son recently, what was I good at as a dad? And he said, you were good at repenting.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, man, you were, like every time you screwed up, I just knew in my heart, Dad will be back in an hour to say sorry.
Wow.
Sure enough, I'm like, excuse me, mate, sorry, that's not the kind of dad I want to be. Snapped at you, yelled at you, it's not you, that's work stress. You don't deserve this, sorry, it's not the kind of dad I want to be. And he just said, I just always knew you'd make it right.
Wow.
And I was like, man, listen, if you're good at saying sorry, that's a good thing to be good at. So I just basically try and make the case, if you want to be an intentional father, you've got to realize that there are different kinds of fathers.
Right.
So you get irresponsible fathers, they're basically a sperm donor.
Yeah.
They just take no responsibility for their kids. And, there's a lot of guilt there, a lot of shame there. I will say this, if you basically have no relationship with your kids, I believe, so number one, you can't just have a moment with God and then think you're going to fix it all because you went to a men's conference and you want to change. You got to realize there's real damage there. You got to be patient. But I believe the power of a father is so great. It comes with a kind of sovereign authority and deposit with God and carries so much weight in a kid's heart that if you move towards your kids in a redemptive way, I believe you get the help of heaven with that.
Wow.
You're not on your own. I think God can cover tremendous difference. He can restore the years that locusts have eaten.
Amen.
In your return of the Lord. So, then you've got inconsistent dads. You've got dads who are sort of in and out. And then you've got ignorant dads who don't have a clue. They know what they're doing. Then you've got involved dads, and they're like, that's your typical good dad. And if you had a good dad, you're pretty blessed. Not a lot of guys have good dads. I just saw some stats recently. Almost 60% of Gen Z is growing up without a father in the home.
Wow.
You want to talk about a generational wound, and you want to talk about a kingdom opportunity. be intentional. Get some young guys and mentor them. So the goal, be intentional. And so the book is basically how to develop a multi-year plan to disciple your son based on how ancient communities did it to form them from adolescence into adulthood.
And part of that is you talk in the book about, like, we don't have a mechanism for, like, how do you know when you're a man? And that this is designed to help. Like, there's like rituals, and there's like there's a way that when you ask your son, are you a man? And he's able to respond, yes, because of this and this and this.
Yeah, if you were to meet my son, and people always do this to him, we always just laugh about the stuff people say to him when they meet him. He's very different than me. A lot of people, I think, expect a little mini me. And it's like, listen, the worst thing you can do is try and make your son be you. The great thing is to figure out who your son's called to be and help him be that, And but you've got to. Ancient societies had a very clear process, and we have lost that process. And depending on it, basically has 3 large movements and then 2 movements within those movements. Step 1 is number 1. Boys grow up in women's spaces, and it's very important. Those spaces are defined by security, safety, nurture, and love. And you need kids to have that sense of like security and love and nurture. Then the men come and basically rip them out of that childhood environment and bring them into liminal space. That liminal space disrupts and disorients them. There's the severing of childhood thinking. And it's not just a dad on his own. Churches need to do this together. It's like doing it in the community of men. And then in that, they go through a rite of initiation, And the point of that is to sever childhood thinking. It's to separate them permanently from that world so they can never go back. So they're sort of like wounded into an irreparable journey from which they cannot return. In that liminal space, they learn the story of their people. They have a sense of rootedness. They learn what the skills are to contribute to your people so you add value as a man and have confidence. And you learn the religious traditions of the people that you're a part of. So here's our people, here's what men do, and here's our God. So it takes years really giving you those skills. Then you go through what's called the ordeal. So the classic one in Native American communities is the vision quest. In Australia, they send you into the outback for 6 months called walkabout, where a young man, by the way, everything in Australia will kill you. It's like, see that fly? That's the most poisonous fly on earth. If it bites you, you're dead. See that snake? That will kill you. See that tree? Don't touch that tree, it'll kill you. Everything kills you. So they send you out.
Is this why you left?
Yeah, I had to get out of there, man. New York, with all of its violence, is safer than a typical day in Australia. So the question or the point of that walkabout or that quest is for a young man to know, I've got what it takes. When he passes the ordeal, he comes back to the community of men and they bless him and welcome him. And then the man goes back with the women and he protects innocence, safety, and security. He doesn't need it. He's not a mummy's boy. He's not drafting off female energy. He comes back with male strength to protect and to create space for the next generation to come up in that. So where is that in modern life? It does not exist, mate. And so I believe that churches have an advantage because that's where community of men gather and they have a tradition. And that if we can recreate that, we are literally going to bring generational healing in a world that doesn't have a clue about how to do it.
Yeah. You talk in the book about, and I'd love you to get into like just give the guys and our listeners like a little insight on what the primal path looks like. But it's designed around, like I think you said something along the lines of, it's not just about being a good man, but actually equipping, our sons to be good at being a man.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty basic idea. The typical Christian man, this is primarily a critique of Southern evangelical Christianity in the US. And I'm not judging you. If you fit into the category of what I'm about to say, I'm not talking about you, okay? I'm talking about Southern American men. The typical man is like overwhelmed, obligated, has baggy khaki pants and a tucked-in golf shirt and perpetually is walking around thinking, I'm not doing enough. And that is held up as like, that's a good man, someone who's really struggling to navigate life. And I think young men look at that, they look at their dads and they're like, if that's what adulthood is, being overwhelmed with burden and obligation while your heart slowly dies while you pay bills.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm that interested in this vision of manhood. And then when I look at the Bible, the great cloud of witnesses, you've got men who through the promises of God are overthrowing nations, being sawn in half, have the courage to throw tables over and confront their pocket. Now that feels a little bit more like it. So one of the breakthrough moments with my son, going through the primal path, which I'll talk about in a second, I just keep saying to him, why do you think I'm doing this? And I remember one day he's like, you want me to be a good man? And I was like, I do not want you to be a good man. Being a good man feels lame to me. What a low vision. I said, I want you to be good at being a man.
Yeah.
I'm doing this so when you walk into a room of teenage girls and every guy wants to vomit, you say, yo, homegirl, let's dance, and you rule the dance floor. My son dominated his prom. Do you want to know why? I said, the idiot that guys feel self-conscious. Girls will dance with anyone who's on the dance floor. I said, get out there and the field is yours. That is an open goal. Go. I said, wear pink suspenders under your black tuxedo, and I promise you, girls will be coming up and pulling your pink suspenders. Sure enough, my son is on the dance floor like a klutz with girls pulling his suspenders. I said, don't worry about being a good man. Figure out how women work. Figure out how money works. Figure out how time works. Figure out how men works. So I took him through all the archetypes of manhood that historically societies have helped men master. So it was a journey of figuring out, here's how to be good at being a man. And his whole motivation shifted. I don't want you to be some beige, bored, overwhelmed, middle-aged man with regret.
Yeah.
I want you to be a wholehearted man who has an idea of how to show up in life.
Yeah.
And so I basically designed a 5-year path of how to do that during his teenage years.
And that's what you called the primal path.
Called it the primal path.
I want you to break that down for us. And then just a quick, and again, you can find actually the primal path. There's actually a website.
Primalpath.co.
Yeah, and that'll help you start to form that.
And as I say, now when you go on that, you're going to get some sticker shock. You're going to go, holy crap, this is expensive. And I understand that. Here's 2 things I've learned. A, it used to be free. Like I've got a tall poppy syndrome from Australia, which is like, no, it's all just. And you know,
We're familiar.
That exists
you
here.
guys know about that?
Who do you think you are?
I sense it, yeah.
It's one of our core values.
Sorry. Yeah. All the dads I gave it to never finished it. You want to know why? No skin in the game.
That's right. Yeah.
You pay attention to what you pay for. And this is like, and listen, this money goes to my son to build his life. Yeah. It's not going to me to get rich. It goes to my son to help him build his life because he went through this journey. But I tell you that I genuinely don't believe there's anything else like it. So basically what I do is I take the first year and I go through the 5 shifts every boy has to make to move from being a boy to a man. There's 5 psychological shifts all societies have had that make you transition from boyhood to manhood. Then I cover the 6 roles every man has to master. So I've got a whole unit. The chapter on sexuality, men and sexuality, is the most robust content on teen sexuality I've ever come across because I read it all and synthesized it into 12 weeks. So I've got the LGBTQ stuff, I've got all that stuff in there, God's vision of sexuality, how to treat women. So I basically took the 6 archetypes, then I've got all the values, cardinal and biblical values that men have lived on, and then we've got a version of Man Year, which is another program we run for men, for fathers and sons to go through together. And then they go on the ordeal, and then the son has to go up. I sent my son around the world for a year. Just sent him out to struggle and flail. And he swam and he made it. So yeah, the goal is to basically figure this stuff out. And a lot of dads, they're too busy to do this stuff. And so I was like, listen, the typical dad's overwhelmed and struggling. And one of my gifts is just like creating content over time. And so I've basically written a curriculum that fathers and sons go through together where I never mention in this. My goal is to give you the tools to be the most formative influence in your son's life. So you invite him into a journey, you go through the journey with him, and he doesn't have a clue who I am. But I've written it so that busy dads can just show up and implement without having to scratch their head and figure out how to do it. The reason that's important to me, Most guys are good at events, but they're terrible at process.
Yeah.
So they're like, we're going out into the wilderness. I'm going to like circumcise my son with an axe and then make him fight a bear with a fork. Like, well, okay. And then what are you going to do for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do for the rest of the time? He's getting formed every day. If you don't form him every day, the world is going to. So I try to sort of do the big
That first
event
one's a
plus
one-off too. You can't.
Yeah, you can't repeat that. The bears
That's one and done.
There's a lot of bears out there, but there's
you can't trust bears to show up on cue. Yeah.
Yeah. When I noticed this even last night, I'd love you to. We'll jump around if you have any questions, AJ. Jump in too. But
Is this being recorded?
yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is going to go out.
I
to
wish
the
I'd
dozens.
remembered that. The dozens will know.
Dozens and dozens will see this. So, but like, you know, like you did a message last night at our men's conference. It just like fighting apathy, and you know, there's this like deep call inside of my heart, like as a man, as a dad, like just yes, I am the wall. You know, you talked about that, like that. I know my calling as a man, as a husband, as a dad, and yet I have this other inner dialogue of like all the ways I'm not that, and I'm, you know, or I'm gonna screw these kids up, you know, and like I was even talking to a buddy of mine, I don't know if he's in here. I was like, man, I just, you know, I was so moved tonight, but I feel like I'm a bad dad. I'm like, you're not a bad dad, but like, how do you manage that tension between like that? The high stakes, the supreme call of God on the design of a father and a family, and then just like the fact that we are gonna, you know, we are flawed, broken ourselves. Like, how would you encourage us as dads to like fight the good fight, but also like be able to manage that tension, I guess?
Every day, this is what ancient writers used to say to men. Every day you wake up and there's two demons at the foot of your bed, fear and apathy. And every day you got to fight fear and you got to fight apathy. That's before you get out of bed. You know, so you just got to understand that those are the wars of a man's heart. Like, you know, man, I'm going to screw it up. I don't have what it takes. I'm not good enough. Therefore, what's the point in trying? Stuff it. Let's play games. You know, so number one, you just got to acknowledge these tensions will always be there. Next, there's two things I'd say. You ask God to help you. You're not on your own, man. Like, it's just a reminder, but Ephesians 5 talks about being filled with the Spirit, and then it talks about marriage, and then it talks about parenthood. Mm-hmm. The primary place the filling of the Spirit should show up is in the home, not in some spiritual, charismatic church service, though I'm down for that. Yeah. It should show up in your home. Ask God for help. Lord, give me the keys to my kid's heart. Lord, show me when they're lying to me. Show me. Yeah. Ask God to help you. He will help you. Yeah. Another principle I use is do in prayer what you can't do in person. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can God can make up what you can't make up. He can get in their hearts and pray for your kids a lot. If you took 10 minutes a day, this is literally what I did. I had 2 little moleskin journals. Yeah. And I did 10 minutes and I would just write every day a prayer for each of my kids in them. That's it. Not much, but just a little prayer every day. And I would just ask, Lord, give me intel on what they're facing. Give me Bible verses I can pray. That was huge. And then I'd say rely on the community of men. One of the first things I say is do an asset map of your life. It's not just you, it's the community of men that do this together. And so I would say to my son, hey, listen, you know, I'm a pastor, believe it or not, I don't have a black belt in money. But see my mate over here, he is printing cash. So here's what I'm going to do. When we talk about money, I'm going to bring him into this. He's going to be a part of this mentorship community I have. So figure out who's good at what and get your son around those other men so that he can get the gifts of the whole community. Yeah. And it sort of alleviates the crushing burden of feeling like you have to do it all.
Beautiful.
And then just repent a lot.
Yes.
Hey, sorry, man. You know, I'm really struggling. Be honest if you get snappy. And I think if you do that, man, God will meet you over time.
I'm sure there's a lot of guys listening to this who are thinking, man, I wish my dad would have been like that.
Me too.
And they feel kind of like there's probably something in their heart going, man, I wish someone would sign off on the fact that I'm a man. Like we hear a lot about this delayed adolescence, that kind of stuff. Like guys just seem to struggle to make that transition. What would you say to guys who are kind of, that's where maybe they don't even have kids yet, maybe they're young, they're single. what would you say to those guys about kind of how to embrace manhood in general and fatherhood specifically?
Well, the first thing I want to say, I just want to give you some encouragement here. Your 12 or 13-year-old kid, whatever you do is normal for him.
Right.
It's not like he's not sitting there going, hey, I read The Intentional Father and you've missed point 5. Listen, he doesn't have a clue, man, you know? So whatever you do is normal for them. So who are you, get out of your head, get the pressure off.
Yeah.
Who are you comparing yourself to? Do what you can do, not what you can't do.
Yeah.
I said this like, it's like learning to pray. C.S. Lewis said we should pray what's in our heart, not what ought to be in there. So I say, if people say, I can never pray for an hour, I'm like, well then don't. If you can't do it and you try and do it, you're going to feel like a failure and then you're not going to want to pray at all.
Yeah.
I'm like, what can you do? I can pray for 4 minutes. I'm like, great. Now you can pray every day, and it turns out you can pray every day. So do what you can do, not what you can't do. Something consistently is better than something dramatic occasionally.
Yes.
Just do what you can do. But you can do more than you know you can do.
Yeah.
And that's the power of intentionality. So I would just say that don't get in your head that there's this perfect process. Your son, you know, many of the things that my son says were the most meaningful to him were not the things in the book. The path in the book created moments where spontaneously these things happened, you know, and that's it.
You talk about, you mentioned it a minute ago, you were talking about like God the Father's desire to like enable us as fathers, like
Yes.
even like with spiritual gifts. I was telling you when we were enjoying those steaks, I had an experience with my daughter a week ago, just like, and you know, I'm a pastor. I love Jesus. I tend to try to be aware of the Holy Spirit and what He's up to. But admittedly, a lot of the time in my parenting, it's like the last thing I think about is like inviting the Holy Spirit into this moment. You know, and we had a moment a week ago where she was really struggling with some anxiety, and I felt the Lord just prompt me, like, just go after my presence. The fruit of my Spirit is peace. You know, and so like right in our room, we prayed, and I literally felt like the Spirit of God come in. You could feel like this shift in the atmosphere, and like she went from like being pretty coiled up to like the fruit of the Spirit was evident. And I'd experienced that in that moment. And like, speak to us for a minute about like the ways that God wants to equip us. So like, what are some of maybe the tools in the tool bag? Discernment, encouragement. What are the gifts of the Spirit? And then, what are some of the tools and what are some of the ways you find that fleshes itself out in real time, like in your parenting?
I tried to build a family altar, right? So have a place for my son. I try to create a ritual, get up at the same time, say a little liturgy. Every day I'd ask him, why am I doing this? So that I can be good at being a man and thrive on my own. So just trying to have a little liturgy. I try and just work through something simple. That's the content I try to put out for you guys. And I would try and build an emotional connection. And I think that is the most important thing, because when your kids when they rebel and you reach for them and you're like, crap, I've lost them. Your normal reaction is to try and punish. That's too late. That just pushes them further away. And I'd say probably the biggest thing that's been most helpful is building a family immune system. Like, a healthy body has a healthy immune system. The people who died of COVID, for the most part, had compromised immune systems. So I tried to build an immune system that can handle things like rebellion, kid looking at porn, bullying, or your kid being the bully, insecurity, secularism. I try to build a sense of connection and joy, life, presence, where that stuff would come in and I wouldn't freak out.
Right.
We had a space to process it and take care of it. So to me, just a consistent place of communication. It could be one Bible verse and one question a day. It can be on the drive to school if you're driving your kids to school. Just very, very small things. It's been said so many times. I think it was Jim Rohn originally who said this, but like the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is successful people do a few small things every day that unsuccessful people don't do. That's it. Over 20 years. the difference between an intentional father and an unintentional father is just a couple of small things they do every day that unintentional dads don't. And so I'd just like pick what they are and then just do it consistently. And that will create space, culture, opportunities, joy, that sort of thing, to sort of process all of the myriad of things that will come into that.
You mentioned just a little bit of a rabbit trail here. Having an immune system in the family that is able to deal with the stuff that comes. There's a generation of young boys, like when you and I grew up, like to get pornography, you had to find somebody's dad's magazine laying around. Like it wasn't as readily accessible. Now, these guys have, access to whatever they want in their pocket at all time. And there's a level of accessibility that's just out way different than when we grew up. What does it look like? Like, you could help give us some coaching on, like, how did you process that? Like the fumbly, natural, like growing in human sexuality, like with your son.
Well, God invented sex.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a wild invention. I'm grateful for it. It's kind of a wild invention.
We're practicing Sabbath Sunday. That's the plan.
Bless God.
Bless God with the...
Bless God and Sabbath. Talk to
Every
your kids
chance I get up.
Talk to your kids about it in a natural way, in as natural way as possible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, hey man, they're gonna get weirded out.
Yeah.
Because it's your parents talking to about it. You just got to accept it's going to be a bit weird, it's going to be a bit awkward. And so lead them in the conversation. Hey man, at an appropriate level of their ability to process it. But just like, hey man, your body's changing. At some point here, you're going to wake up and, you're going to have had a wet dream. Here's what a wet dream is. Here's why your body's doing it. And when you do that, let me know. I'll take you out for a steak. It's like, great, man. Talk about it. Normalize it. Hey, man, kids are going to look at porn. Here's what porn is. Here's why it's damaging.
Yeah.
And show them, hey, listen, like, I understand your attraction to this is healthy and natural. Engaging in this will distort your brain and hurt you for life. And so I basically leaned on experts. Before my son got a phone, I put all these gateways. This is like before you teach your kid how to drive, you put gates before you provide access.
Right.
Like if you guys love to hunt here, you don't say, hey, here's a gun, and leave. You see, you do gun safety. You teach them how to hunt. The same thing with sexuality. You talk about it. And so very, very natural conversations. I think the average exposure to pornography is age 10 now or something. It's like horrifically young. Yeah. When you've got that moment when your kid is looking at porn, you will either create a cycle of shame for the rest of his life on how you handle that, or you'll have an open conversation about how to process it, be honest with that. Honestly, I made my son listen to so many podcasts from like the no-fap kids, right?
No-fap?
It's I don't want to talk about it. Don't Google it. It's guys in their 20s who got erectile dysfunctions, who couldn't get an erection in real life because they looked at so much porn. I remember saying to my son, what do you think of those podcasts? And he's like, I do not want erectile dysfunction in my early 20s. And I was like, well, I feel like we're on the same page here, man. So I made him like, I was exposing him to like, hey, here's the beauty of the kingdom of God and here's why. Why? Not moralism, not fear, not shame. Here's why. This is how it sets you up. And then when you do struggle, which you will, you've got to rely on the grace of God. You've got to beat the shame cycles. Yeah. You just got to talk about it and talk through it, with them. And then have honest discussions with a community of men. Yeah. Older men sharing their stories. Hey, here's what pornography has done. It's like, it's really damaged my marriage. It's created shame in my own heart. Hey, listen, how have you handled that? Then you want stories of people who have overcome it. Hey, it's possible to beat this, man. God will help you. So you want the community of men to speak into the life of your son. So I think, rely on the community, open and honest conversations. Yeah. You've got to normalize awkward conversations with your kids.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it seems to me that like a lot of guys go, man, this would be so weird. I don't know how to bring it up. And it's like, well, if it's weird for you, think how weird it's going to be for your kid. So if it's going to come up, you're going to be the one to bring it up, right? Like you can't sit and go, if he's wondering, he'll ask, right? Like you got to initiate that.
Yeah, I laid this out. You know, I mean, with my son, we did a whole unit. So on the 6 roles every man has to master, one of them was like the lover. So you got to understand how women work, man. And so I would make him do, like, each week had a homework assignment. And the homework assignment was like, who's the prettiest girl in your school? Okay, what's her name? Okay, you got to go ask her out this week.
Wow.
Now, I need you to know she's going to say no to you.
The Tyson boys.
And listen, I need you to know she's not going to say yes. The point is not for her to say yes. The point is for you to realize she's just a woman and you have the right to approach women.
Wow.
So I want you to just go talk to her. And I said, did you do it? Yes. What'd she say? No. I was like, that's my man. Congrats. Great week of life right there.
My son's in the room.
Who is the...
I want her name. And,
My point is, I was just trying to normalize just getting the fear out of his head.
Yeah.
Women are gods.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, women are people, man. And you need to treat them with respect. You need to treat them with dignity. You need to have the courage to interact with them and not be weird and dorky. So that's yours. So I just every week had a theological teaching.
Yeah.
I had a practical skill. It had lies the world is telling you about this. I had a study on what the truth of God's word, and there was like a real life skill development. I say this a lot. Confidence comes from competence.
Competence? Like
competence. Yeah, it's my son told me once, like, the pep talks aren't working. Like, I need help. I need skill development here. And so I put a lot of time on skill development. Like, here's how to actually do this stuff. So yeah, you can create this atmosphere where you're constantly giving them micro challenges that stress them enough, but then if they do it, they feel amazing. And then if they fail, don't worry about it. We'll do another one next week. So again, you're just building that sort of rhythm of investment where over the course of time, you know, they sort of develop confidence to do these things on their own.
How does, so you have a daughter as well.
Sure do, yeah.
So
I have another course, Raising Resilient Daughters.
So can you break down for us, like how does intentionality take different form between raising sons and raising daughters?
Well, you know, that's just hard with your girl. It's hard because you're like, you know, you've been a teenage guy.
Yeah.
You haven't been a teenage girl, and that thing is like a vortex of confusion and emotions. just get in there and you hardly know what's happening. I think the key is building a healthy attachment with your daughter, healthy attachment, an emotional attachment. I wrote about this recently. I think this is a key insight. A therapist said this to me at a men's event. The most important thing is not what's happening between you. The most important thing is what's happening in her heart. And most dads are always freaking about, like, I'm not connected or not, whatever. You stop worrying about your connection. Start worrying about her heart. And when you understand her heart and what she's wrestling with, you have a completely different relationship. So here's a classic. This is a real story. Teenage girl. She's like, hey, I want to go to this party. You're not going to this party. You haven't done your homework. I'm going to the party. You're not. You're grounded. Do your homework. And you're looking at what's happening between you. You're looking at her life circumstances. You're looking at school. You're thinking about an education. And what you don't know is that she's been socially ostracized by a particular group of girls. And this is the first time they've invited her to an event. And she feels like her entire social life has an opportunity to recover, and you just block that for homework. And if you power up and you start caring about the externals, you're going to lose her heart. So the most important question is to ask, why is going to this so important to you? What is happening in your heart? And again, so, you know, there's a great book on parenting called Shepherding Your Child's Heart. That's the goal, man, is to care for their hearts, not just their behavior. So I spent a lot of time doing that. The other thing I'd say, I got this from Stephen Covey. Almost both of my kids' whole lives, let me take that back a half step. I very, very regularly took my kids out for one-on-one times with no agenda but their choosing. So it's like, hey, listen, as I said to both my kids, I don't know how to say this to you, we are going to have a great relationship. because I'm your dad and I refuse to have a crap relationship with you. So we're going to have a great relationship. Also, because I'm your parental authority figure, I'm in control of your schedule. So what I would love to do is to create a space where we can do whatever you want in this time, and you get to make it as good as bad as you want. But this is happening, home girl, because you're my daughter.
That's awesome.
And so my daughter ended up saying, every week I want to go around New York City and take photos. She got into photography. And I want us to go to every cookie shop in New York and rate them.
Like Dave Portnoy kind of.
Yeah, Dave Portnoy, but with cookies.
Rules.
And I was actually, my vision was like, I'm going to do, Haley and I are going to travel the world going to cookie shops, and then she's going to put out a cookbook called The World's Perfect Cookie, and that's how I'm going to fund her university, which in America is an ungodly amount of money.
Yeah.
And we never got round to the cookbook because of COVID. But so every week, she would pick out the shop, and then we would go and we'd take photos, and then we'd put them on a computer, and we'd get home and we analyze it. And we bonded over that for her entire high school years. And again, I'm just building that sense of connection and relationship with her. Fill the time with what you want. Same thing with my son. What do you want to do? Man, he's got ADD. Dude, we did everything. We did basketball, robots, jiu-jitsu. He got a black belt in taekwondo. We did that. We did
robot jiu-jitsu sounds.
It was actually
I'd watch that show.
Very good.
I'd watch robot jiu-jitsu.
And the whole time I'm just like, I'm with you in this. Let's do this. And then I would do some stuff that, you know, I would surprise him with cool stuff as well, trips around the place or whatever. My simple point is I'm regularly making deposits into our emotional relational account. And you've got a relational account with everybody. And if you're always withdrawing discipline, criticism, stress, then when you want something, you're going to realize there's nothing there. And that'll grieve your heart with real sadness. But you can deposit in it enough that when you do have to make those withdrawals, there's plenty there that you can draw on and you redeposit. So if you were to do anything, I'd say one night a week if you can do it, one night a month if you can't, and just say this is just a time to build the relationship with what they want to do that they care about.
So your kids are adults now. What does intentional fatherhood look like when you're in that phase?
As a parent?
Yeah.
Well, it's, you know, you basically focus on who they marry, where they live, and what they do for a living. And you just support the crap out of them. That's it. Anything not invited as an adult is perceived as an unwanted lecture.
Say it again.
Anything uninvited from your adult children is perceived as an unwanted lecture.
Right. I didn't ask you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Dad. You know, nobody's like, oh, great, we get to go and be critiqued about how we're not living the life that our parents' opinions are like. Wow, let's go there more often. No. So sometimes, like this happened with my son recently. I was like, I know that if you do not invite me for this feedback, it's an unwanted lecture. But dang it, this is so important, man. Listen to me.
Really
Listen to me. You're screwing up here, you know. And he was like, thanks, Dad, I appreciate that. That was an unwanted lecture.
Yeah.
And so the main part is you want to support them. You want to pray for them, you know. And these people are raising your grandkids, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
Help them.
Yeah.
They're raising your grandkids, you know. And what do you wish your parents did when you were young? My guess is helped you financially, helped babysit, looked after the kids, provided encouragement when they're already trying to deal with the confusion and trying to figure out life. I try and do a lot of that. I try and encourage them. I try and always just give them little bits of money. You know what I mean? $100 note, that's good.
Yeah.
Hey man, it's good to see it. You know, go get a little ice cream or something. It's like, that feels good. So I want to,
if you want to, I'm not sure if
you want to model that
illustration.
Okay, gotcha.
If you wanted to get an actual $100 bill,
yes.
it just.
I want to model to them. I want to create an atmosphere in a world of negativity, where it's like, when I get around my dad, that's going to be a source of encouragement. Now, I don't always do it because I'm really critical by nature, but I want my kids, you know, to have this atmosphere. So the other thing I would say is, like, ask your kids how you're doing. So I would sit my kids down and I'd have a serious meeting.
How am I doing as your dad?
You 100%. Hey, I want you to do a little performance review on me here. Like, what's 3 things I'm doing good as a dad, and what's 3 things you wish I'd stop doing? My son was like, you always pick Haley's side and she's emotionally manipulating you. And I was like, that's 100% true. She got me around the finger, man. Like, you're just gonna have to live with that. That ain't changing. So next, you know. But they gave me feedback. Hey, when you say that, that really discourages me. Thank you, I'm sorry. I didn't know that was discouraging. I'll try not to do that.
Yeah.
When you do that, that's really annoying to me. You don't, thank you, that's really helpful. And then what am I doing good? You're doing that? Okay, I'll do more of that. So every couple of months, I'd sit down and let them have a performance review of how I could do better as a dad. That may sound simple. It's so obvious that the people you're trying to serve are the ones that have an idea about how you're doing. Yeah. So why not ask them how you're doing so you can get better? And I remember one time sitting with my daughter, we're in Times Square. I said, this is a formal evaluation of my fatherhood here. So, you know, here's I have these little note cards. You just write down these things. And then, so she took a little moment, wrote it down, and then she hands it over to me. Number 1 says, what am I doing good as a dad? The fact that you care to ask how you're doing is everything to me. Wow. And I was like, dang.
That's why she's the favorite. No, just kidding.
That's why she's getting everything she wants as an adult. Yes.
This is the manipulator.
Yeah.
Well played.
You sound like an unreasonable dad. In the best sense. So we're almost done. I want you to pray for us, for the dads in the room. But before we do that, just speak really quickly to, you referenced a couple times like the gift of the collective fatherhood within the church body. You got some men in here that maybe their kids are out of the house, maybe their grandfathers even, but maybe they're sleeping on their voice and their influence, like, to the young boys and kids that are in their church communities. Could you speak just to that, like, I don't know, releasing the spiritual fathers in the region, in our local churches, like guys kind of finding their voice?
Every man has an obligation to God and to himself to figure out what he's good at and what he's learned. Every man has to codify his gifts and his aptitudes and his key learnings. And you are better at way more stuff than you know. So I'll give you an example. If my car broke down on the side of the road, I wouldn't pop the hood. I don't have a freaking clue what's under the hood, man. I'm getting on the phone and calling my insurance like, yeah, the car's broken down. Send someone who does this for a living. And I have zero technical aptitudes with a car. Not a lot of people driving cars when they live in New York City, if you know what I'm saying. It's not an area of competence for me. So you should sit down and say, hey, here's what I'm good at. I'm good at fixing equipment. I'm good at fishing. I can hunt. I can teach someone how to skin an animal and butcher it. Okay, that's good. Someone else, I've got a real knack for finances. Like, I'm just good with money. Someone else, I'm a leader, man. I know how to motivate others. So every man needs to sit down and say, what lessons have I learned? So I want to have my own sort of history to pass on. What skills do I have? And then let people know, yo, bro, here's some stuff I'm good at, and I'm happy to serve you. If every person, look at these men here. If we sat down and everyone just took 30 minutes and you wrote out the key lessons you've learned about how, I always say, what have I learned about God? What have I learned about myself? What have I learned about how life works? You write that down. I can tell you right now, there's some stuff I'm good at. And this is stuff I'm not good at. And if I'm good at it, I'll help you. And if I'm not, I'll find someone who can help you. If you had a community of men with all of their life experience, all of their gifts, all of their aptitudes, you will realize you have access to something better than YouTube, man. You have a live working knowledge and wisdom. And so you've got to codify that. You've got to know the value you bring into a room. And by the way, men feel great when they can do something. Yeah. Like Uncle Steve maybe he's at Christmas. And, your teenage daughter's like, my car's making a funny noise. And Uncle Steve's like, pop the hood, I got you.
What's it sound like?
Yeah. Steve's like, oh, yeah, listen, that's your carver belt or whatever, you know what I'm saying? My point is, when Uncle Steve, by the time you come back, I mean, he's covered, he's ready, and how does he feel? That was the best Christmas I ever had because he's delivered value for somebody else. Every man has skills to develop, codify, use those, and then have an awareness of how to share those, and then tell one another what you're good at.
I think that ties back to what you said before about confidence comes from competence, right? Like, it's actually healthy for you to know where you're competent because it gives you a sense of confidence, but then you can bring that to bear on other people too, right?
And every man is competent in something.
Yes.
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like watching the guys out here in the forklifts. If you're a forklift operator, you may think, well, what value am I bringing? It's like, well, I don't know. If something needs to be moved, and you're the one that can do it, a tremendous amount of value.
Provided everything's where it goes, we don't need you. But on the off chance something needs to ever be somewhere else, you're our guy.
That's exactly right. So I'm just simply saying, a community of men that all know their gifts. Same thing with property. Yeah. So if you're like, oh man, we can't afford a thing, but you've got a friend with 5 acres and he's like, yo man, you can camp and do it on my property. You know, they're like, we've got to asset map what we bring to the table, share it with one another, and be a community that helps solve each other's problems. The world cannot do that. The world does not have access to that kind of knowledge or relational network on the regular. Yeah. And if men get together, even a community, even a small group of men, what are we bringing? How do we bless people through this? You would do so much good in the world and you'd feel so great about yourself. I'd start there.
Beautiful.
It gives a bit of a glimpse even to what Jesus was praying in John 17, like, you know, they will know that the world will know that they're my disciples by the way they love one another. Yeah. Like that there's this like radical community of care that speaks to the reality of Jesus. And I think that's more practical maybe than we think about. Like we think oftentimes of love as this like, you know, this mystical thing, but it's also Steve popping the hood and getting, you know, fixing the alternator at Christmas dinner for his nieces.
I mean, in the upper room, right, it says that the time had come for Jesus to show the disciples the full extent of his love. And what did that look like? Menial labor.
Yeah.
Right? Like it wasn't this grandiose gesture. He didn't sing him a song that he'd written earlier that day. Like he just goes, I can wash feet. I'll do that.
And coincidentally, he also has some capacity beyond just washing feet.
He was a carpenter.
That wasn't the top.
Jesus is like, listen, I don't want to do a miracle here. I want to show you my cabinetry skills here. So let me just go ahead and get on that. He spent 30 years in obscurity working with his hands. We gloss over that.
We do.
Yeah.
30
years. 90% of Jesus' life was hidden in manual labor.
Yeah. Massive. Would you, John, thank you so much. Yes. Would you just like pray a blessing, equipping over the dads that are in here?
I'd love to. And just one thing, you know, I too have tall poppy syndrome, but I will say this, every week I send out an email for men. Yeah. Send it every Thursday. And I'm just trying to encourage your heart.
Okay.
So if you go to primalpath.co.
Yep,
primalpath.co, and you just click on an email there. The best thing you could do to help me is sign up for that.
Okay.
And every week I'm sending something out.
All right.
And this past week I spoke on how to fight criticism when you're a critical person. Just a little, it's like this little thing there. Hopefully that blesses you. And I'd love to pray for everyone.
Thank you.
I also just want to say, if you're a dad and you're sitting here and you're just thinking, it's too late for me. Like I've just absolutely blown it. And, you know, whatever intentional is, I'm the opposite of that. And is there any hope for me? I just want to say there is hope for you.
Yeah.
And I have so many stories over the years of working with men for 2 decades of like that story of that marriage being repaired there. You are working with a God who can do relational miracles.
Yeah.
It may take some time. There may be some repair work you got to do. Don't be naive. There may be some work there. I have seen some breathtaking reconciliations. Yeah. So I would just say, don't give up hope.
Yes.
Just start praying. Come on, God. I want to make up for what's been lost, and I want you to restore this, and I want this to be a source of joy. So I just want to speak that over you. It's not too late.
Amen.
Do not listen to the voice of the despair that says that's for others, it's not for me. It's for you. If you turn towards God in repentance and with a sincere heart, the help of heaven will fill your life. So don't believe the lie, it's too late. You can do this. God is for you. He's with you. Let's believe that God will break generational cycles.
Amen.
Yeah. Father, thank you for the chance that we get to call you Father. Lord, you are the only perfect Father. And Lord, I just want to pray a revelation of your heart would fill every man here. Thank you that we do not have an orphan spirit.
Yes.
Your word says that we are not in slavery again to fear. How many men, what motivates them is they're not good enough. Nobody's going to want them. They don't matter. They're slaves to the fear of those things. But your word says you've given us the spirit of adoption, and we cry out, Abba, Father. Lord, I just pray, release the Abercry in the hearts of these men. Lord, help them realize they're not parenting from a deficit of love. You have given them everything they need. You've put your spirit within them. You've adopted them into your family. You've given them great and precious promises. You promise to be with them always. Lord, you reward us when we seek you. So I just pray, would you release a spirit of encouragement and vision in the hearts of these men?
Yes, Lord.
Lord, we just ask you would break off generational cycles, Lord, the dumb stuff that keeps bleeding down through our lines. And Lord, I just ask that you would just give them a vision of damming up the brokenness and releasing blessing with their lives. Lord, I pray for every home here. I just pray your presence would be there. I pray for grace and connection between fathers and sons and fathers and daughters. Lord, I pray for stepdads here who are trying to figure out how to do it, make these marriages work, and these kids that they're struggling to connect with. I just pray great grace there. Yes. Lord, I pray for dads who are divorced and they only see their kids every now and then because they don't have custody. I just pray, remove any shame from that, Lord. Help them to see they can do what they can and that's enough.
Yes.
Lord, we just ask, help us as men to be who you've called us to be, not to perform, but to live out who you've made us to be. Help us, Holy Spirit, for the Father's glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Down and down, white water. That's where the log driver learns to step lightly. It's burning down and down, white water. The log drivers waltz these